Hey everybody, Garcia here, and today I'm going to be ranking all of the currently available characters for Unmatched. There are 13 as of right now. That is 4 from Battle of Legends Volume 1, 4 that came in Cobble and Fog, 2 in Robin Hood vs. Bigfoot, 2 from the Jurassic Park set, and then the standalone Bruce Lee character. So I'm going to be ranking them, just going down from 13 to 1. I'll put them up on the screen here alphabetically, and I'll move them over as I rank them. And by the end, then you'll know my thoughts on them. I'm also going to just briefly tell you kind of what the deck is about and show you one card or two that I particularly like in there, all right? So let's go ahead and just get going with it. So we're starting from the bottom. My least favorite, not to say I don't necessarily like it, but it is my least favorite, is King Arthur. King Arthur here comes with Merlin. My main issue is King Arthur has a ton of health, but the play is not very splashy because he can take a lot of hits, okay? So I find playing it is really destructive to your hand. His special ability is you can discard a card and boost your attack with that card, but then you're ripping apart your hand of cards. So that's pretty tough. I picked this card here to show you. It's a defensive card, value of 1. It says after combat, if you have 4 health or less, then you go back up to 8, which is cool. So again, this character can definitely usually outlast other people, but playing it, I don't find necessarily exciting, okay? So that is my 13, then King Arthur and Merlin with him. Next up, I've got here Robin Hood. Robin Hood has only 13 health, so you see the big difference there, 13 to 18 we just had. He's got the Outlaws here, 4 of them, which is pretty neat. You got 4 support characters running around on the map. The special ability being after you attack, you can move, attacking character 2 spaces. All right, not bad. And then the special card I chose to show you here was the Ambush, which is pretty cool. During the combat, your opponent has to discard a random card, and you add that value to yours. There's also a few other cards that are going to let you steal cards, take from the rich, give to the poor. There's cards that do that in here. It's an alright deck. I enjoy playing it just fine. I like that comes with it more. Obviously, that's Bigfoot. We'll get to that later on. But I think it's okay. It doesn't lack fun. It's fine. Again, all the decks I think in this game are great. This one I just do not normally find myself reaching for. There you go. That's Robin Hood. Next up, we've got here Jekyll and Hyde. Jekyll and Hyde is a tricky one to play, certainly, and it's the one of the decks that you will need to punish yourself in order to do well. Many of the cards in here are going to let you change, or make you change, from being Dr. Jekyll to being Mr. Hyde. You will lose 1 health if you maneuver while you are Hyde, okay? So that's something to take into consideration, keep in mind. And then the ability there is basically just that you'll be jumping back and forth. Many of the cards you can only use while you're on one or the other. Dr. Jekyll for that one, Mr. Hyde for that one, right? There are some seriously heavy-hitting cards in here, though. Like this card here. It says, after combat, if you won the combat, choose one of the fighters in the combat and move them up to 2 spaces. And then, what's the one I want to show you? There's one that's nasty. This one here. Forever Hyde. During combat, you may discard Dr. Jekyll cards. This is while you're Mr. Hyde, okay? So you can discard Dr. Jekyll cards, and you add 2 to this card's value for each one. You can make this 5 a massive hit if you have the right cards in hand. That's very cool, very splashy, exactly the kind of thing you don't find in the Merlin and King Arthur deck, I think, okay? So that's pretty neat. It's just kind of hard to pilot this deck for me, so I have a little bit of a harder time playing this one. Next up, I've got Alice here. And Alice is the other deck that does that sort of switching back and forth between Big Alice and Tiny Small Alice. The difference here being you have +2 hits while she's big, +1 defense while she's small, okay? And the cards are not going to be tied to Small Alice or Large Alice. That's not a thing in this one. Many of the cards will make you switch from one side to the other. So again, timing and sort of knowing where to be on the board at any given moment is very important in this one. That's the main thing. I guess ultimately I find that mechanism in both this one and Jekyll and Hyde. I think it's a clever mechanism. It's a neat idea. I don't necessarily enjoy playing it. It feels like I often catch myself being the wrong type at the wrong time, right? Cool card in it. I'm going to show you this one here. It's got some nice abilities. Looking Glass. It's a defensive card, and after combat, you get to pick 2 of these 3 things. So you can draw 2 cards, she can recover 3 health, or you can just place her in any other space. I like that. I like that I can pick which ones I take based on the situation at hand. So pretty good. 13 health is not bad, especially if you are hitting big. You're going to want to wrap up the game fairly quickly with this one. But it's a neat idea. I do like it. I like this aspect of Big and Small Alice a little bit more than I like Jekyll and Hyde. All right. Next up, we have got the Raptors from the Jurassic Park set. This one's really neat and distinct because there is no hero and sidekick. There are basically 3 smaller heroes. These go up to 7, but there are 3 of them. And they're all going to be moving around using the same cards. The cards do not give you, the ability to move one raptor or another. They all basically say any, right? Because it doesn't matter. And they're pretty neat, very thematic. You want to surround your targets, and that's how you're going to put a hurt on the opponent. All right, that's the main thing there. This card here, Clever Girl, it's an any card, so you can attack or defend with it. And after combat, if one or more of your raptors is adjacent to an opposing fighter, then you're going to gain an action. You get to do something again. Lots of different cards are going to trigger based on being around your character. And you are simply doing more damage if you are surrounding your target. So this is neat. I like it a lot. I do like Muldoon better, and you'll see that in a bit. But I think the Raptors are really neat, and they feel distinct from really any other deck in the game. They're really different. This idea of having 3 heroes plays in a very particular and peculiar way. So there we go. Next up, we've got Bigfoot. Like I said, Bigfoot I like a little bit more than I like Robin Hood in that set. If I'm playing just out of that box, I prefer to take Bigfoot. But it's still not one of my favorite decks, I would say. Which means, well, now that I've said both, Bigfoot versus Robin Hood is not my favorite set, my favorite box to buy. But I like it. So Bigfoot's deal here is that you are going to be very mobile. He's good at staying hidden, keeping away from the opposition. A lot of the cards are going to let you move through other people, even enemies, right? They let you move through enemies and get away. You'll be drawing cards at on your turns. If you are hidden, if you're far away from everybody else, you're going to be drawing more cards, all of those kinds of things. My favorite card is pretty straightforward in this deck. It's just that. It's a blank card with a hit for 6. I just like it. I think he's a beast, so that's pretty neat. I like the idea that he can hit for 6 with a single card. But there's also plenty of other stuff. Like I said, choose an empty space in this fighter zone. Place this fighter in that space. So that's a quick jump to somewhere else. Lots of moving through other people, like I said. So I like it. I think the sidekick in this one, the Jackalope, is good. He's got some nice moves where he can run across a big chunk of the board and attack somebody with his horns, So I like it. It's neat. I definitely like it more than Robin Hood, but still plenty more to come that I find a little more splashy. This guy is just sort of a brute, and he's good at running away. That's fun. When I don't want to have to think too much, I might gravitate towards this. If I want to be a little bit more tricky, some of these upcoming ones are thinkier. Speaking of thinkier, this next one is quite thinky, and that is Sherlock Holmes with Dr. Watson as a sidekick. Very tricky deck, very cool. It definitely puts you in the shoes of Sherlock Holmes, where you have to be careful with what you are doing. You have to attempt to predict things that you think are going to happen in the game. I'll give you an example here. So this card here says confirm suspicions. Basically, it lets you choose an opponent, name a value, and they discard a card from their hand, okay? And then they're going to take hits. If they have a card of that value, they'll take a hit based on that card's boost. So again, it's quote-unquote detective work. That's the sort of thing you can expect to see. You know, this one, during combat here, you can change the printed value of your opponent's card to its boost value. Very nice. And then also the fact that the special ability is that your card effects cannot be canceled. You are too smart for that. They cannot trip you up and cancel your powers, okay? Very cool, interesting. One that is, like I said, pretty thinky, but if you feel like embodying that, this is going to do it for you. So I like that. All right, next up, we've got Robert Muldoon. Robert Muldoon has a really cool, really cool concept, and that is setting up traps on the board. These are traps. He's going to be putting those out. You begin with 8 of them. And they're going to mess with other players, okay? They're going to stop them. They're going to hurt them. You can even trigger them to explode, as this card shows you here, my favorite card from this deck. You can choose to explode those traps and do some damage out there. So characters need to avoid them, you know, but you sometimes have to walk through them to get to me. I enjoy it. This is a cool one. It's very distinct again. I like it a little bit more than the Raptors. They work really well against each other, very thematic, but it's just kooky and interesting to take this up against somebody obviously out of that same world and seeing how that plays out. The bombs, the traps are very distinct, and I like having, it almost feels like you have a bunch of sidekicks. They're just not mobile necessarily, so I really enjoy that, you know. There you go. That's it for me. That is Engine. Very neat. Next up, we have got Medusa. Medusa is cool because it's a tricky character. A couple of really big hits in here. You always feel like you might at any given moment die or get petrified or something like that. She's got this one amazing card, Gaze to Stone. After combat, if you win, you're going to deal 8 damage to the opposing fighter. That means if you already did at least 1, you do another 8. This card will kill you. That means you never know when this card is being played, which means you don't really want to let any one attack go. If your opponent guesses right on the one you are not defending against, this could very easily take you out. Very powerful, very tricky. You need to know when to defend, because you can't probably really, defend every single time, and your opponent will be able to use that against you. It's neat. It's distinct. So there you go. That's what I like about it. The harpies here are also pretty nasty, so I enjoy this one a lot. It's a fun one to pilot, and having that fear always be present is it really plays well into the Medusa stalking you concept. All right, we are in the top 4 now, and my number 4 is Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee here is amazing. This character has no sidekick, has 14 hit points only, which is not one of the higher numbers, but it is amazing, this deck, at giving you extra actions. You can basically consider yourself your own best sidekick. A lot of the cards in this are going to speed you up. Per your opponent taking a couple of actions, you might end up with 4, 5, So there's a lot of these that are going to have some effect, and then after combat, they'll gain you an action. There's also plenty of cards that will give you these back. You'll be able to take these Kundo cards back into your hand and keep playing them. So ideally, you are just simply doing more to your opponent than they are able to do to you. Also, this has one of my favorite special abilities built in, and that is after combat, after your turn rather, you get to move 1 space. That means against melee-based characters, this is amazing. You can always just back off 1. Just back off a little bit every time and force them to move up on you if they want to hit you. Great. Now I can hit, maybe hit again, and then back off 1 space. So very fun. You really feel powerful. You have very little to keep track of because you have a single character. So this is one I would definitely recommend to just about everybody if you are looking for something that is hard-hitting, makes you feel distinct and special and powerful. And you don't want to manage a lot of things going on the table, on the board. You don't want to try to get into your opponent's head too much. Just hit them hard. Bruce Lee is great for that. Really neat design. I love the churning of cards and the extra abilities, extra actions. So there you go. That's 4. Top 3. Here we go. Sinbad. Excuse me. Sinbad is my number 3. I really enjoy the way this one is going for like a longer game. You want the game to give you plenty of breathing room, because the longer it goes on, the more of these voyages you'll be able to go on. The more your moves will allow you to traverse the board. As there are more of these voyages, you'll be able to get around more quickly. And many of these are going to enhance how hard you hit as well. So there are a lot of these voyages. They all have distinct artwork as well. And they just work tremendously well. It's one that's got a cool theme. It's interesting, the idea. But if you can delay the end game, if you can hang on for a while you're a little underpowered, you will eventually turn the tide of the game and have tremendous turns. And that's what I like about it. It's the cadence of this deck is a little bit different than a lot of the other decks. And if you're able to get in sync with that, you're going to do some fantastic damage. Really enjoy it. Sinbad, my number 3. All right, my number 2 is Invisible Man. Obviously, you now know my number 1 as well, but I'll talk about it in just a sec. So the Invisible Man's got these fog tokens. They're going to go on the board. They're kind of, sort of like support characters or sidekicks. Obviously, they don't hurt. Technically, they don't. But you'll be able to move around using them. They're going to trigger a lot of special abilities based on your deck. You are you're invisible. So you're hard to catch, hard to corner. You are going to do a lot of damage that is not triggered from attacking necessarily, and I really like this about it. This one is one where you'll be able to chip away at your opponent's armor outside of a combat action by having them near fog, by having them walk through a place they don't want to walk through, by messing with them basically. So I really enjoy that. Here is Invisible Man. You get to recover 1 health, remove the Invisible Man from the board, just be off the board entirely, and come back anywhere you want next round. That is amazing. So again, you're very hard to find, very hard to catch. And it's not just defensive stuff. There's plenty of offensive things as well, where you'll be able to do some damage. Here we go. Deal 1 damage to 1 adjacent fighter. If the Invisible Man is on a space with fog, you deal 3 instead. And then your opponent then is gonna move 1 of those fog tokens. You can jump around them, the fog spaces, as it says here. So I really like it. I think it's just phenomenally thematic, engaging, fun to play. Absolutely adore this one. But there is one I do like more. And that is, of course, Dracula. The Dracula deck with the 3 sisters as sidekicks is fantastic. Your health is pretty low in this one. 13 health is not great. Thankfully, the main thing you are good at with Dracula is healing, draining blood and healing your health back up. So a lot of the cards are going to let you stretch that 13 out to quite a bit more if you do it just right. Couple of cool cards here. Dracula has this hypnotizing card, Do My Bidding, where you play this as a defensive card. The card your opponent played, you bounce back to their hand, and then you pick a different one for them. Love it. Fantastic. Again, and it feeds into that sort of manipulation of your mind, hypnotism kind of thing. Here we've got one that is going to deal some damage and then heal you up based on, draining some blood. Really interesting. Lots of that going on in here. And there's a lot of these schemes as well in here, so I like that. I always enjoy the scheme cards. Many decks don't have too many of them. This one has a decent amount of schemes, and I like those as well. So there you go. That is Dracula, my favorite deck of them all. Tell me in the comments below what you think of my ranking. Where am I wrong? Where am I right? What are some of your favorites? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your own thoughts on this. But that's going to do it for us, everybody. Thanks for checking out my ranking of Unmatched, all of the decks currently available. I'm Z Garcia. I'm going to see you on the next one.